Hello! Remember me? It's been a little while. I know I said I'd have a video out sooner than this, but cold weather, lack of motivation held me up a little bit. But I've got a huge pile of scrap down here. Need to get rid of some of it. I need some good storage solutions for my Stanley fatmax small parts containers and for my finishing stuff. So I think I've come up with a good solution in this video. So let's get on with it.
So here under my miter saw station, I currently store all my small part organisers. They stack neat on top of each other, but sometimes when you want to get one out, this happens. Now I can't keep going to A&E with a concussion from being hit on the head by a box of screws. Also, at the moment, I'm storing all of my finishing products in this box on the floor, which takes up valuable floor space, which isn't ideal. So we move outside, and there I am waiting with happiness that I'm about to use my table saw for the first time in over a year. Now, as I've mentioned, this project is going to be made up from bits and pieces I have lying around the place. So whilst creating some neat storage, I'm also creating extra space by using things up. A win-win. Now this plywood does have a little bit of a bow in it, which does cause me some small problems later on. This is some phenolic, I think it's called, inch thick coated plywood. I salvaged it from the skip at work. It's far too good to throw out, and in a previous video I made a table from some of it. Link to that video in the corner. And then I also have this length of chipboard, which was actually a shelf for my newly installed kitchen, but I never got around to using it. Perfect for this project though. Now, I need to cut a housing or dado joint depending on where you come from. So I've got this 6mm grooving blade, and to fit this to the saw I had to buy a spacing ring. It's probably a bit much for this saw as it did cause some vibration, but taking the cut slow it was fine. So after the first pass I could move my fence and make the second cut. This is where the bow and the plywood caused me some small issues. It didn't cut deep enough at the start of the cut, but I was able to clean this up with a chisel afterwards. A quick visit to the miter saw station to get everything cut down to the correct length. This miter saw station has transformed my workshop. Why it took me so long to build one, I don't know. I just need to do a little bit more work with the dust collection. Sanding. I actually don't mind sanding, and this T.B.A sander may look familiar to you, and that's because it's actually a Merca, but in green. It's made under license from T.B.A from Merca, and it's also cheaper. One of my best purchases. Now I also bought a much longer hose for my vacuum, but it's maybe a little too long at the moment. The next step is painting. I like to paint all things in my workshop to stop moisture and mould on the wood. I choose to paint it because it's cheaper and quicker than staining it with oil or a lacquer. Painting with the roller though does leave these small dimples and bumps in the final finish, which catches all the dust in the workshop. So after I finish with the roller, I come back with a paintbrush and layer off the paint. Once it dries, you're left with this really nice smooth finish. Ooh, smooth. Oh yeah, don't forget to paint the edges either. But because I like to watch paint dry, I went back and gave everything a second coat of paint. Now we can move on with assembly. I'm just going to glue and screw this together, no fancy joints on this one, so I can mark up my holes for the screws and then get to town on drilling them out. I line at the base with the side and I can drill a pilot hole through the holes I've already made and then simply fix it in place with a self-cutting screw. I probably put more screws in than was needed, but this thing is going to be heavy once it's all loaded up. Moving on to the next side, and yeah, this is a point at which I realised I got a bit carried away and forgot to put glue on the side I've just put together. What a tit! So now glue added, I can get back to assembly. That kitchen unit shelf will make up the divider on this unit, so I'm just doing a quick dry assembly to make sure the divider and the top piece all fit together as I had planned. Beautiful! So now I know it all fits, I'll get some glue in the housing joints or dados, slide the divider in, and I'll use some brad nails to fix it all in place. And for an extra bit of security, I also added some screws, as my small part bins are actually quite heavy and I don't want the sides of this bowing out like my waistline does. And with a bit of tap tap tap, drill drill drill, and with a bit of glue I can get that top secured in place just like that. So onto the back of this unit. Here I'm wiping off the glue for the bottom piece. In this side, this is where I'm going to be keeping all of my finishes. This bottom piece will also become a shelf, so I'll also add this piece of MDF to the edge of the shelf to stop things sliding off of it as and when I move it. I'll be adding 2 other shelves to this side and some more tap 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 to check its level. And each shelf is fixed in with 2 screws from either side. No glue on these ones, in case I ever need to move them. Doubtful, but who knows. And the spacing of these shelves was determined by the height of the tins and the containers for my finishes. I'll add the same strips of 6mm MDF to the edges with glue and brad nails to these shelves. Now back onto the parts bin side. I bought this piece of angled steel. I don't know what it's called, but one thing's for sure, it's definitely not called metal supports for Stanley fatmax parts organisers. But if it was, it would have been much easier to look up. Anyway, I'll use the angle grinder to cut these down to the lengths I need. A bit of deburring, and then I decided to cut the corners off that will be front facing on these supports. These will protect my delicate little hands from getting cuts when sliding the parts organisers in and out. To fit these supports, I just cut down 2 pieces of MDF as spacers. I made the spacers about 10mm taller than the organisers, so there would be enough clearance to slide them in and out easily. And then once the first bracket is fitted, it's just rinse and repeat and work your way up to the next one. After I had fitted one side, I actually found it easier to lie the unit on its side and work my way up like this, rather than holding the impact driver up in the air, precariously balancing the screw on the end, praying that it doesn't fall off. Now when I came to load it up, I found the bottom organiser would slide in and out fine, but with the weight of all the other organisers on there, the other organisers would slightly catch on the screw heads I just fitted. Maybe the extra weight has caused these sides to bow and twist slightly at the ends, I don't know. Anyway, as the bits that are catching on these organisers are the side clips, and as I've never used the side clips, and never intend to, the easy peasy solution was to grab a belt sander and taper them down towards the bottom. And now with my technical adjustment made, they glide in and out absolutely trouble free, just like I had planned all along. Apart from this one, where I'd left the clip up. And that's me looking extremely chuffed that my plan came together, for once. Moving back to the back, off camera I made this door. Again, it has shelves fitted to it, but this door is shallower than the compartment on the other side, and that's because I can get all my spray cans in here. Now I haven't painted the back panel of this door, as it would have looked far too dull and a bit crap. So I had a long hard think to myself about what I could do to it, but then I had an idea. I've got these offcuts of studs. I thought to myself, if I run them down the bandsaw against the world's dullest bandsaw blade, then perhaps I could cut some of these thin strips that when fitted to the door will make it look like a timbre door. You know, these doors that slide up to open them. Now for a trim surround, I use another length of pine and I cut a rabbet in it. Don't see the Americans in their tiny workshops have these space issues. Nah, might work. I thought if I get this side and the top piece of trim fitted, then this will give me a 90-degree angle to work off of, and also I can get the slats fitted straight and level with each other. I gave all the slats a quick sand in on one side, because no one's going to see the other side, and then rounded the edges over with a block plane to give them that rounded effect, which might just help add to the look of the timbre door effect. I was just going to pin these slats down with brad nails, but I thought, I've come this far, in for a penny, in for a pound and all that, and laid down a nice puddle of glue. I'll slide the slats along on the glue and then under the rabbet on the trim. By sliding them under that rabbet, there's not a huge clearance there, so it'll hold them down to keep them in place. Then once I got them all fitted, I came back with a brad nailer and fixed just this edge into place. Where I've put the brad nails on this side, the next trim piece I add will cover up the holes left by the brad nailer. Sneaky and simple. Okay, so we're getting near the end now, so stick with me. I've got this cheap piano hinge that's been hanging around for a while that will be ideal to use on this. I could cut it down with a hacksaw, but the angle grinder is much easier and much more fun. The screws provided with this hinge certainly aren't the best quality, so I thought it best to use my bradawl to make some small location holes to start the screws off. Then I can come back with the impact driver and fire the screws in. As always, they never provide enough screws. And now looking at the underside, you can see why all this wood is scrap wood. I'll fit 4 caster wheels. These 2 I'm going to fit here are free to move, whereas the 2 front wheels have locks on them. After a quick touch up on the paint, I can finish my timbre effect door that now looks more like a louvered door to me. I used some of this finish made by Leo from Hand-Eye Craft, and it's really easy to apply and should protect the pine from moisture in the garage. and it does leave a nice smooth finish. So here's the finishing side all loaded up. As you can see, I was able to fit everything in there quite nicely, and it's all really well organised. To secure the door, I fitted this roller catch, but it didn't hold the door as tightly closed as I would liked it to. So I added this extra latch to help it stop it from opening when the unit is being moved. And there we are! It rolls under the bench lovely, and with all the parts bins loaded up, it's so much easier to pull a parts bin out without the others all falling on top of me.
Okay, so I've been using this for about a month now, and it's completely transformed the way that I work in the workshop. The theory behind building it like this was that you're not going to be using screws and fixings when you're doing your finishing, and vice versa. When you're needing your screws and fixings, you're not going to be on a finishing stage. So the fact that you can pull this out and use whichever side you want when you're doing that particular task, you know, is a real good help, especially in a small little workshop like this. And I've also noticed it's got an added bonus, because when you pull this out, you can use it as an extra bench top. Anyway, that's it for me from this one. I'll see you in the next one.